Okay, hello. How are you? So Brandon was very gracious with his introduction. Hi. I was a very rebellious teenager, and so when he saw me at that Christian conference, he was probably very surprised. So, my name is Amanda. I've been in Ethiopia for maybe 6 years. Not maybe, I have been in Ethiopia for 6 years. It feels longer and shorter depending on the days. I kind of put some photos in there for you guys. We can just walk on as we go. So you did say short introduction. I'm from Alabama. I don't really know much of a short introduction because sometimes your identity becomes what you do. God loves me, and I live in Ethiopia. Okay, so I serve in Ethiopia. The way that I got there, I went to Ethiopia on a short-term 1-week mission trip, and when I came back to America, I was just like, I don't want to be here. Sounds crazy. And so I started looking at how to go back. And so over the next, I think it was 3 years for me to get back to Ethiopia. The doors just kept opening, and I kept walking through them. And so it led me to Bingham Academy, which is an international school in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And my first 4 years there, I taught as a lead teacher. My degree is in elementary education. So I did second grade and kindergarten. But as I was doing full-time teaching, I started getting involved in community outreach, which was not that heard of at Bingham, which is really funny because we live in Ethiopia in poverty, and it's very lost. But I love Bingham because we started as a missionary school, an MK school, like 80 years ago. And now we still have missionary kids that come, but it's kind of half and half now. A lot of the students come from all over the country. I think we have 60 students, 60 countries represented with our student body. So I stayed at Bingham, and I stayed teaching in these classrooms, although poverty and the need outside our compound was very in your face. It was very real. I'll tell a story about why I love our students and that it's a mission self. If I only taught, it would be enough for our students. We had a speaker come, and if I agree with the way he did this or not, it was a very good visual for me. He was talking to our students who are from everywhere, and he was like, you have 2 choices. You can stand up and start worshiping when the music comes on, or you can sit down because you just don't care about any of it. And I was like, interesting. And the music started, and we had maybe 4 students stand up. And I was just like, oh, we've got our work cut out for us here, even at Bingham, not even outside the gates. So I stayed, and I was like, I'm going to pour into these students. They're the ones that are on the back of the first page. And so I started, and some of my students are in 7th grade now. My first class, they'll go into 8th grade this year. Oh, gosh. And so I stayed and I invested. But as I was doing that, I started really investing in Colfe, which is the little neighborhood that we live in. And so we had 2 programs at Bingham running already. I did not start them, but somehow I started leading one of them over the years. And so that became its own full-time job on top of trying to teach these Bingham students. So I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing, God? Like, what would you have me do? I can't keep doing both. And so I went to the director, and I was like, I really love our students. I really love the community. I want to put them together, but there's no position for that. So I understand that if I have to leave, then I'll leave. But if not, then I would love to stay and continue this. So he came back, and there's now a department, an outreach department. I did not start it. It was not by myself, but it was the way that school was leading. And I just kind of punched the door open because I was like, I got to do this now. The tagline at Bingham, our motto is teaching truth, equipping generations, and to change the world for God's glory. So our hope is that when our students go from Bingham outside, they graduate and they move back to their home country, that they can be like a good human being, a nice human being, which is, we're working on it with our students. But they also know how to serve people. We say, God loves you and you need to love others, or you should love others out of that love that God's given you. And they don't know how to do it. Like it has to be through practice, right? So they have to learn how to do it. So now my job is twofold. I'm still getting to know these students. That was a goal this past year, was to really know the students. And man, did I crush that goal, because they will not leave me alone. They're always in my office. Now I'm having to work in a cafe or at home because they're like, Miss. And I'm like, go away. Don't you have school? And then the other side is creating opportunities for them to get involved in like tutoring, ESL, playing soccer. It's soccer in America, not football. So the other half of my job now, I'm working in the community. There's a government school right beside us, and we now have maybe over 5 programs working over 80 kids, and half are of the Islamic faith and Ethiopian Orthodox. So not Christian. Yay. So that's really fun. It's to really get to know them. I do home visits. I get to know all of these kids, but I want to do like personal stories. So if you look right underneath, like it says community outreach, this little girl's name is Kadist. And Kadist came to our program 2 years ago, not invited at all. We had a new program start for little girls from 7 to 12 years old. They come in, we get to know them, and so we had their moms, and it was like a grand opening or a start. We had lunch and everything. So Kadist comes in, and I was thinking, oh, someone's little brother. So I walk up to her, and I'm like, hey, what's your name? And I use the boy pronoun, and she was like, my name's Kadist. And I was like, okay, we need to talk to you. I was like, so where'd you come from? She was like, I live next to these people, and I just followed them in. I was like, oh, okay, are you in school? A requirement to be in one of our programs is that you have to be in school, because we kind of need you to meet us halfway in that. So she was like, nope, and turned to find out that Kadist's mom is an alcoholic who lives on the street and begs, and this little girl is not in school because she helps her mom. And so I was like, well, do you want to go to school? And she was like, yes. And I was like, cool, I want you to go to school. So it took us 2 days. We found her mom. My friend helped me, and we got her in school. And over the next year, I was like, I cannot do this. It was the hardest thing I have ever done with this little girl. She, she would come to program and then wouldn't come, and we'd have to go and find her. But now, to see God use her, there's a video I can show you guys later, but she listens. She's always at the gate as soon as possible. She'll come when she's not even supposed to come to the program, but she really trusts us now, and it's really cool to see the transformation in her being 8 years. She's 8 now, being 8 years old. So that is just one story from one little girl out of a lot of little girls and older girls in our program. I think that I should be wrapping up right now. One other thing is sometimes we lose the why in what we do. We keep working, we keep going, and I was like, God, how many more home visits do I have to go to until I see something worth being here? And I get it. God is at work, and I know that he's there, and he goes before me, and he's done all of it. But I'll close with this. So one other teenager was in my office, and we were talking, and she stopped, she looked, she was like, the only time I truly laugh is when I'm here. And I'm like, okay, God's doing something. So yeah, that's me. That's a little bit. Please come and ask me any questions.